Mr. Curran, how you doing today, sir?
I am great, Christian. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, how are you?
We had a very eventful day, very eventful morning. It was the worst-kept secret maybe in the history of the NFL, but now that the dust has settled on the big decision, Tommy, how you feeling about it? How you feeling about this quarterback scenario here in New England?
And I'm not sure if it was even eventful. There was an event held, but we all knew what the outcome would be, and it was the right outcome. I guess my overarching feeling on this is the Patriots in 2024 needed to ooze competency with their messaging and the way they approached their rebuild. And they were on the cusp of that until the messaging got muddled. And the messaging got muddled really on the first day of camp when Drake Maye said if he's lights out, then he'll play. Okay, even though he referred back to pro-ready and talking about Jacoby Brissett being better equipped and he being the starter, the door was cracked. And then to go on throughout camp and then eventually saying that Jacoby outplayed Brissett, that's the headline, fine print after, but it's the entire summer and we have to take into account a number of things. We all knew this was going to be the end result, but the fact the door was left ajar when we knew what was behind the door anyway, I think was an oozing of incompetency in the messaging. I get why they did it. I know that they wanted Drake Maye to feel less as if he was an apprentice and feel more entitled and to compete harder for the job. Not that he wasn't working hard, but, go after the starting job. Take the command that we want you to take as the third overall pick. They accomplished that. They got it from him. But I think the messaging got muddled throughout that made it seem as if they were going to deviate from what was pretty much a well-founded plan.
Tom, part of that muddled message for me was even when Gerard announced it today and said we and then said I in the opening of his press conference, I'm okay with it being a we decision because I think the power structure they've set up and the way Gerard has talked about, I have a head coach of offense. His name is Alex Van Pelt. I think it's very normal to believe that Elliott Wolf, the man who drafted Drake Maye, Gerard Mayo, the head coach, and the head coach of the offense, Alex Van Pelt, made this decision. Why over the last day or so has Gerard been so adamant that I made this decision? If it doesn't work, blame me?
I think the fact it's been in the air that who knows who's making the decisions, who's making the decisions down there. It's a collaboration. And I think that he wants to assert where the buck stops. That's my logic behind it. Whether or not it needs to be done in an instance like this, it doesn't. I mean, if you, me, and Christian all decide we're going to go to the 99.
Yeah, nice.
Hell yeah.
And no one varies on that decision. We'll go 99? Yeah. You? Yeah. Me? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're on the 99. Who made the decision? We all did.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's anybody on the planet, although Phil said that Louis Riddick deviated. I think it is virtually unanimous that people think that Jacoby Brissett should start. Now, the reasons for it are myriad, but nobody thinks that he shouldn't have started. So there really wasn't a decision. The decision was made in April. If someone was going to deviate from the decision, then it would have been a single-party ownership of I made that decision. I was the dissenting vote. The buck stops with me. But this was a we decision.
If it was a we decision in the sense that they were all aligned, right?
We.
They were all right. Yeah, we. If they're all pulling in the same direction, they all seem to want the same thing here. In the event that Jacoby Brissett does go out there, and let's say everybody's worried that Maye is going to get hurt, is Maye the next guy off the bench, or are they going to go the extra mile to protect him and make sure that he's not going to be the one that goes out there? In the sense that we're not ready to put him out there yet. We're trying to bring him along slower.
Yeah, I'm not presuming that anyone is afraid that Drake Maye is going to get hurt, and that's the primary reason he's not playing. I would imagine the primary reason is he hasn't played enough football. He hasn't seen enough. He hasn't competed enough in camp. The other guy has. He gives us a better chance to be kicking on third down. He gives us a better chance for all the work we've done in 5 months with Drake Maye to not be undone. Certainly you have the threat of an injury, but that's part and parcel of playing in the NFL. I think the main reasoning isn't let's make him cannon fodder, and if something happens, we'll go sign, Ben Narducci. They're going to start Drake Maye. That would be the next person up. I think that we're to a degree, and they've opened the door for this because of the state of the team and the decision-making or the messaging. They've opened the door for so many different theories as to why. He's sitting because the other guy's more ready to play NFL games right now.
Tom, most of us that have been watching this team, whether it be the practice field or the preseason game field, have been concerned with the level of talent and play coming from the offensive line. Yesterday, Gerard Mayo said that's a little bit overblown how bad it was against Washington. He said we averaged 5 yards a carry. Are we overblowing how bad the offensive line is?
No, we're not. I do think that the presence of David Andrews improves them all by about 30%.
Yep.
But there needs to be a hell of a lot more urgency. You can't have, as everybody has said this week, repeated alignment penalties, which are embarrassing to the entire national TV audience. So, yeah, they have to be better. I was listening to Christian on the way in to this call, and he was saying that the Patriots didn't do enough to get better this offseason. And what I would counter with is they signed the best tight end. They signed the best interior lineman in Onwenu and Henry. There were no wide receivers.
You're talking about Austin Hooper. I was like, wait, he was the best tight end? Okay, now I know what you mean. Sorry, go ahead.
There just wasn't a tight end tree or a wide receiver tree. Calvin Ridley, we all understand, was an overpay. The only reason they should have spent that money would be to appease people. Same thing to an extent, I believe, with Ayuk, which is they're still monkeying around with that, which is absurd. But to me, the wreckage of this team that went 4-13 and deserved to go 2-15 had it not been for those 2 late wins. They had 6 first downs in the last game of the season. Last year at this time, there was one quarterback on the roster. They had to cut Bailey Zappi, and nobody claimed him. They brought him back. This team is actually better now than it was then. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that they feasted in the offseason, but it took a while to get this bad. And they're better now without Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster running around with a straight face, and without the head coach hating his quarterback and actually having 3 of them instead of just one. They're better off now.
We're talking with Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. So, Tommy, I think most fans would like to know, or at least have an idea, how bad does it have to get, and what's the earliest we could see Drake Maye out there starting a game?
That's a great question. If Jacoby Brissett has to be an impediment to winning. As one player in the locker room said to Phil Perry yesterday, we just need offensive possessions to end with kicks. So if he turns into a turnover machine, then there you have it. Then you have to make a move to the other guy. If he's an impediment to competing, I'm not even saying winning. If it's blowout after blowout and it's mistakes made at the hands of Jacoby Brissett, then you have to move on. But what if they end up 2-3 after week 5? You don't want to get into a situation like the Miami Dolphins were a few years ago, where Ryan Fitzpatrick was actually a good stopgap. And they decided, against Fitzpatrick's wishes, against many of his teammates' wishes, to go with Tua. And then you had to pull Tua back out because he couldn't play. And they had to put Ryan Fitzpatrick back in. That was a disaster, and it set back the development of Tua. So, to me, what Mayo said today, if he plays well, he keeps playing, in essence, is what he said. I think you have to go with that.
Tom, I wanted to give you a chance to just clarify something you said in one of the last couple answers. Ayuk, do you mean Ayuk still messing around with the 49ers, or is there still any chance Ayuk and the Patriots is
No.
Okay.
Just that the Patriots pushed away from the table on it.
Okay.
And said, you know what? He doesn't want to come here.
Yep.
We got our guys. We're not going to keep doing this.
Right.
So, pushing away from the table on that, and he continues to not show up to practice out there. So it's, played footsie with Pittsburgh and whoever else was involved in that pursuit. So that was what I was saying. Look, Ayuk might be a tremendous player, but he certainly seems like he's a lot. And Calvin Ridley is not worth the money that they were going to have to spend.
Right.
So I get the logic. I wish there was – in 2021, Christian, to make your point, they went out and spent like idiots on Hunter Henry, Matthew Judon, excellent. Kendrick Bourne, okay to good.
Mm-hmm.
Jonnu Smith, bust.
Horrible.
Nelson Aguilar, bust. Devon Godshaw, pretty good. So, but what'd you get from it? In terms of wins? What kind of team building did you get from it? So I'm all for shopping your face off as long as there's people out there. They signed Nelson Aguilar to 2 years, $22 million, more than they were willing to do with Jacoby Myers, 2 years later, and he couldn't play here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in terms of the way that he looked, going to Baltimore after that, it certainly seemed like he had something left in the tank. But you're right, he didn't offer much to the Mac Jones offense. That's true. But I do think in general, when you go out and you spend a lot and try and at least set your rookie quarterback up for success, there's at the very least that idea that, okay, we're going out there and we have a plan. It doesn't seem like they had that same kind of plan. And speaking of that kind of plan, Tommy, it seemed like earlier in the week you were hinting at the idea that maybe going the route of drafting a quarterback at 3 overall this season, considering the wreckage that you referred to left over from last year, may not have been the way to go. Is that something you stand by now, or is that was that something you were just throwing out?
No, 1,000,000%. That was the strategy I thought was to build the team. And there's a million philosophies to follow. No one way is the right way, but the wreckage of this team, Mac Jones is in Jacksonville as a backup right now because of the offensive line. That's what helped to ruin him, turned him into a puddle because he eventually started looking at the rush and peed down his leg, and the party was over. So you build the offensive line. And they could have done that by trading down with Minnesota, still gotten the quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, still gotten a tackle. They would have gotten Jalen Polk in the second round or someone else at that 37th pick or whatever they did to trade there, and they'd have 2 first-round picks for next year. They could move wherever they wanted it, whatever, flavor of the week at quarterback emerged in the next 9 months. But they chose the other way, and it looks like they chose a good, promising, potentially very good quarterback who is physically strong, mentally resilient, and physically talented. So I think all those things are going to be good for Drake Maye. I just differ on the way the team could have been built, given when you had the 3rd overall pick and the hunger of teams behind the Patriots to come up. I think they should have cashed in.
Let's end on a high there. You brought it up. Am I a homer to be pretty thoroughly impressed with the way Drake Maye has handled himself, both on the field, but maybe more importantly, everything he's said through what's been kind of an interesting summer for his first professional training camp?
No, I think his upbringing, his family helps with that. I mean, his dad played at North Carolina. His brothers were high-end athletes. So I think and I think some of that probably contributed to him maybe being deferential to the coach and the plan in the early stages.
Right.
And now when they said, go get it, he ramped it up, his performance and his fire. So, but I'm very impressed with all elements of Drake Maye, especially given the improvement in the little things that we saw in March and April. We said, yeah, you know what? I don't know. But if you want to turn the kid into Sam Darnold, play him now. If you want him to be good, do what they're doing.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Tommy Curran, thanks so much for the time today. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. See you.
All right. See you, Tommy. Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boss.